Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Beyond Barriers Live, where we will be coming to you live every evening and giving you tips and just advice.
Inspiration and advice on leadership.
That's right. But before we dive into any of that, let's share a little bit about Beyond Barriers and who we are and why we're here.
Yeah, that's right. So, our mission is all about accelerating women in leadership. And it all began because we read this report about how it's going to take 250 years for women to have gender and pay equity and opportunity in the workplace. And we realized we're just not that patient.
No,
so
2 centuries, no thanks.
We're not going to wait 2.5 centuries for that to happen. And we said, how do you sort of close that gap faster? What can we do about that? And that's where Beyond Barriers emerged. And we are a platform for leadership development, for personal transformation and community engagement.
Yes.
And our mission is quite simply to accelerate women in leadership. And when you think about what is it that accelerates women in leadership or anyone in leadership, it really comes down to access.
Yes.
Right? If you have access to the right things, the right resources, the right relationships at the right time, then you can really accelerate your success. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people just don't have. And so for us, everything we're doing is about democratizing access.
Right. And knowledge as well, democratizing that knowledge where sometimes you just don't have those insights that other individuals do, especially if, you're first generation, corporate or first generation college, you just don't know what you don't know.
So why are we doing this live stream? We're going to go live every day at this time because we want to provide that same kind of access of providing the training, the insights, the inspiration, and also answer questions and engage with our community. So first off, thank you so much for being here and for joining us. We're excited to be able to get to know everyone and answer your questions. And also take this journey together. We'll share with you kind of what we're learning along the way, the stumbling blocks we're facing and how we're growing. And we want to hear from you how you do that as well.
Yeah. So make sure, throughout this live that you actually post questions, anything that you want us to ask, and we'll be pulling questions from our community. And we're doing this also because our community has asked for just more access to knowledge and information. So we thought the best way to do it is come live and drop it in these like bite-sized kind of 10-minute, 15-minute lives that, you can take it, think about it, and put it to action.
So why don't we start with just you, Monica, sharing more about your story, and I'll share mine, and we'll get to know each other, and we'll do this every day.
Yeah. So I think part of my passion around all of this is, I grew up in a small town in West Texas. I'm a Latina, come from a traditional Mexican-American family, and I wanted to just do big things. And after I got my degree, I moved to New York City and I landed a job in corporate, and it was culture shock to say the least. I mean, it was, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it was really difficult where I thought, put my head down, work really hard. It really didn't, it's great. Yes, the whole work ethic thing, but unless you pick up your head, raise your hand, and you really do learn the, rules about self-promotion and things like that, you won't get ahead. So I had to learn to do a lot of things. I had to unlearn a lot of things that I thought I was supposed to do. And
like, what's an example?
An example of, well, put your head down, work really hard, and don't kind of boast or don't like talk about yourself or self-promote because it's wrong to do. And you learn really quickly that in the halls of big corporate, people are kind of pitching themselves and self-promoting and getting ahead, raising their hand and say, I want this or I want that. So learning to ask for what you need opposed to waiting for something to be handed to you. So I had to unlearn a lot of things and then relearn a lot of things. And, it was when I started sharing this information, it was one of those things that I wish I would have known this, or I would wish I would have known where to go. Yeah. And that's all about what we're trying to do is transfer that knowledge and just help people accelerate their success.
So you've also made the leap from a corporate role to entrepreneurship and building Beyond Barriers after 20 years in corporate America, working with really big companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a scary leap. 20 plus years in organizations like Goldman and Google, Bank of America, Ernst & Young, and made a lot of really great, have a lot of really great relationships and colleagues and whatnot. But I got to a point where I was doing really great work. We were doing great work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, really helping women and other minority groups accelerate in their career. But I was always like hitting this wall where we couldn't touch as many people as we wanted to, whether it was bandwidth or budget constraints or whatever it may be, we were only touching a finite number of people. And I kept saying, this is such valuable information. How do we get it to the masses? And so, the only way really to do that was then, create a platform like you and I talked about. And it was like, okay, take the leap. But, all those imposter syndrome, self-doubt things were popping out of like, who am I without having my title and working at a big company?
Yeah, because when you take away the title and the big brand, it certainly sort of challenges your sense of confidence in that.
It does. But, I just took the leap and said, okay, well, let's, I don't know what I'm getting into, but I'm going to figure this out. And so, the MacGyver in me came out and said, let's do this, and just went in, and rather than putting my toe in the water, I just jumped in. So, but I can tell you over the past year, it has been phenomenal. I've learned so much, and it's been brutal in certain instances, but, I just, we're reaching so many people, and the feedback we're getting from our community has been fantastic. I mean, for you've done, you took the leap, 10 years ago, but still you've launched extremely, successful companies. Let's talk a little bit about, like, you made a shift to
I mean, this was completely different from what I'd done as well. Cause, and the reason that matters in talking about that is switching lanes is always scary.
Yes.
But you got to know why you want to switch, and then just keep taking the steps in that direction. You just got to decide if that is what you want. And, when I look back on my history, it's sort of growing up in India and then deciding that I wanted to have a bigger, I had bigger dreams and I wanted to be in America, and deciding to come here, even as a young girl, that was a scary thing to do. And especially to come alone, and 20 years ago, making that, coming to America with really nothing and building up from there. And then starting off in a traditional corporate career in management consulting and technology and innovation and all of that. And much like you, Monica, was sort of doing all the right things, working really hard, and playing by the rules, doing all of that. But and despite my success, though, I always had this desire of basically following my entrepreneurial dreams. And 10 years ago, I finally said, I've done well, but I want to pursue something even bigger. And simply making that decision, this is it. I just want to pursue that. Wasn't easy. And it was filled with rejection and failures and missteps and mistakes. And just a whole bunch of ignorance around all the things that you don't know. So there's no shortcuts to that. But when you decide and you say, like, every day I'm just going to keep going down that path, it's incredible how your competency grows and how your confidence grows as well. And then you start believing that, yes, you can actually get there. So having built a business in the past and being recognized, as a female entrepreneur, and getting a huge platform of visibility also then drew my attention to the fact that there's so few women at the top. It's not just in corporate, but also as entrepreneurs, there's so few women-owned businesses that really scale up and become really big. And I'd done that, but it seemed like there was such a huge need to share exactly how you do that and why it's possible if you simply if that is truly what you want, and you simply decide to pursue that and you follow through with that action. And, coming from an innovation and technology background kind of allowed me to take a very different perspective on how might we advance women in leadership in a very scalable way. How do we do that using a platform and doing it differently? And with Monica's expertise in, leadership development and diversity and inclusion in HR, and bringing together my expertise in technology and innovation, really allowed us to combine two very different perspectives to create something really cutting edge, really disruptive, and bringing something that we know the world needs at this point. But most of all, it's much like any other journey. It's, you just got to decide if this is what you want, and you keep moving forward. Yeah.
And I think that's really important. The decisions you make, right? Just, you have to decide and then move forward and be okay with just failure, right? We decided, hey, we're going to go live every day. And we're like, we've never done this before. We've done it a couple of times, but not like the big, hairy commitment of do it every day. Like, are you sure every day? And it's like, yes, that's the only way we're going to learn. So here we are.
Well, exactly a year ago, actually. It was about this time, a year ago, we decided we're going to launch a podcast. Of course, we had no idea how to do anything with podcasting. Had no experience in media. Didn't know anything about interviewing guests or producing the episodes or sharing it. None of that. A year later, we've launched more than 120 episodes. We've got a huge community around the world that tunes into the podcast 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes. So we've got tons of great content. And we have blown all expectations of the downloads and the followers and all of that stuff. So
see, but when
it's just taking that first step. It's just taking
and
that
when we decided, it was like, oh, 1 podcast a week. And we're like, well, if we're doing 1, we may as well do 3. And it was just like, but we just got on a roll. We put our heads to it, to our minds to it. And we just said, let's just do this. Let's commit and let's move forward. And it's deciding and then moving forward. Cause I've learned to now be much more decisive and less worried about, am I going to fail, or what are other people going to think? It's just like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it and not apologize, be unapologetic about it. So,
and just have fun. Have fun. And know that you'll just get better over time. I mean, we're a lot better with the podcast now
than we were.
I remember my very first guest interview. I didn't even want to put the camera on.
I know.
I had a script that I was reading, and I was so terrified of screwing up. And to go from that to now having really big name guests that we can't wait to share with you all the upcoming episodes. So if you don't know about the podcast, definitely check it out. Tune in, listen on your favorite podcast player, or go to our website on beyondbarriers.com where you can find the podcast. But subscribe, because you'll get all the latest episodes. And if for anyone who's been with us throughout that journey over the last year, you'll see the difference in like the very first episode to like where it is right now. And I'm sure it's going to keep getting better, but everything is practice. It's just commitment, consistency, and sticking to it.
Absolutely. So. And, we'll be sharing with you kind of all of these questions that maybe you're afraid to ask, someone individually. So pop those questions, send them to us, whether you drop them in the comment box or you email us, or however you want to share those questions with us, and we'll answer them, because you probably aren't the only one wondering that or wanting to ask that question. We've seen it in a lot of our, in our community, where someone will ask a question and everyone's like, oh my God, I
had the same question.
I had the same question. So definitely we're here to share all of our knowledge. And if we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer and we'll bring it to you. So
every week, every day, what we're going to do is we'll gather all the questions, whether you post it in the comments or you reach out to us through any of our social channels, or, reach out to us through our website. But we'll gather those questions, including from our own members. And what we're going to do is pop those questions from a list of things that we can pick, and we'll answer as many questions as we can get through in our live stream sessions, and we'll just keep going through that. So definitely be sure to engage, share in the comments, whatever your questions are, even after this. If you happen to catch this afterwards and you see a recording and you're like, hey, this is a question I have, would love to get an answer, just share with us. We're here for that.
That's right. So we will see you next time.
All right.
Oh, wait. We have one question. Maybe we have 1 minute. We have a few seconds. May as well answer it, right?
So what advice would you give to people from marginalized groups who struggle with imposter syndrome and combating stereotypes?
That's a really great question. I mean, we all deal with imposter syndrome no matter who you are. But I think there is a complexity when there's this intersectionality of, you know, I'm Latina, I'm female, and I'm gay. All of these things, sometimes it compounds on itself, and depending on the environment and the social place that you're at, those little voices start coming out. And I think what you really have to do is think about all of the accomplishments you've had thus far, and really just play those things in your mind over and over again, all of those accomplishments, and thinking about, just because you're different, you actually have an advantage. And so
I was going to say that you know, one of the hardest things to do in today's world, with 7 billion people in the world, the hardest thing to do in anything is to stand out. And any product that you look at, whether it's a box of cereals or a brand new car, the reason why someone chooses that is because it's different.
Yes.
And if you are someone who has, who is at the intersection of various identities, it actually makes you more unique. It's a reason for you to stand out.
Yes.
So own it, celebrate all the things that have
absolutely
made you successful, and, just stand out based on that.
Absolutely. Because I found when I was more authentic in who I was and just embraced it, that is when really I started standing out, because, you know, I was different. I was different from the typical corporate person walking down the hall. So I leveraged it as like, hey, people will notice me. And if I'm going to have their attention, that captive attention, then I'm going to make the most of it. So don't let that imposter syndrome stop you from being your authentic self.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was going from, oh my gosh, I'm so short, why would people even listen to me if I'm on stage, to saying, wow, thank God I'm different from the usual speaker or leader, that I'm 4'11", and people remember that. And they remember the energy and the power of someone that stands out and is different. So everything that makes you different is a reason to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's do this again tomorrow, and we'll see you at the same time. Take care, everyone.
Bye.